learning how to enjoy a game is really important. I care about a good game. That's what I care about. If I lose, I lose. But like, it's a game. It's a game. It's a game. But I get emotional about games where I messed up. That's my mistake, and I get frustrated with myself. But like, getting frustrated from losing games in Commander specifically is most easily solved by learning how to appreciate a good game. And like, oh man, that game had a lot of interaction. We all tried, like all this cool stuff was happening. And then a person won, like, hey, great job. Like, you did a great job piloting your deck. That's awesome. Let's play another game. Because that's what you can do. You can I can play another game. And I think this is part of the dynamic of multiplayer that's really interesting, is that any game could turn into a game of arch enemy. When we get into that mindset, it becomes a pack mentality. It's just some of the weird, interesting social dynamics of humans where we want to attack together because we're now unified, and then all of us are now on our own again. Wait, now it's 2 against 1, but the person who we're against, we don't have enough firepower to stop them. It's just really interesting. It's an interesting dynamic.
Welcome to Humans of Magic. My guest this week is Hire. Hire is a member of the Playing with Power Collective and is super passionate about Competitive Elder Dragon Highlander, or CEDH. Hire delivers a masterclass in getting better at CEDH and navigating the dynamics of multiplayer Magic. He's got a serious love for self-improvement while being ultra-intentional with social interactions and having a good time. This episode will definitely help you level up your game in terms of mindset and approaching Magic the right way. In true Humans of Magic fashion, we delve into Hire's backstory so that you can form a well-rounded picture for who he is as a father and social worker in his community. Please enjoy my conversation with Hire. All right, we are live with Hire. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. We have a huge time difference, but I'm feeling good. It's nighttime. My son just went to bed, and it's time to do an interview. Really excited. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. You are literally maybe the second or third person that I've ever had on the podcast to talk about CEDH. Like every conversation I'm having with somebody is just mind-opening for me because I have very limited exposure to EDH and CEDH, and actually just like even watching some of your content and playing with power content, it's just like opened up this new domain for me. Like, and I think you're one of the most intentional and like knowledgeable people about CEDH. So I think this will be kind of a fun conversation from that perspective, you know?
Awesome. Yeah. I'm down to just shoot it. Let's go.
And don't worry. I said we're live, but of course, you know, this is not really live. Like if your son comes down, I think down the stairs or whatever, it's totally fine. Is he still doing that every night you're recording or what?
Nah, when we put him to sleep, we got him on a good sleep routine. He usually stays upstairs. He had a little mischievous phase for a little bit, huh, babe? A little bit, where he was like trying to sneak downstairs. We're like, hey, you got to cut that out, bud. But now he's doing great.
How did it get cut out? Like, did you just get bored of doing that, or did you have a good father to son talk, or what was it?
We had a stern talking to. No, yeah, he's my son Silas is 3, and one of the things that we learned early on is like bedtime routines are really important, like every aspect of it. So like right now, a bedtime routine is go upstairs, brush your teeth, floss, and then we like run across to our room, and then we change him. We put all his bedtime clothes on. We do like little rituals to like help him, like, oh, it's time to go to sleep mode. It's time to go to sleep mode, you know. And then we have like goodnight kisses, and then we read him a couple books, and then okay, it's time to go to sleep. And then he lays down. He like has his own books in his hand, and then he'll fall asleep within like maybe 30 minutes or so. And like that's been the routine for how long do you think, babe? Forever. 2 years? Yeah, 2 years. And like maybe 7 or 8 months ago, he was trying to get out of bed and like run downstairs. And one of the things that we had to do is like, okay, why is he running out of bed? Like, what's happening? And he just wanted to test boundaries. And so we had to reinforce that by, okay, let's walk upstairs and let's finish reading a book. And then, okay, now you have to stay in bed. You gotta stay in bed, bud. And then we did that a couple nights, and then he was good. It's good to go.
That's amazing. I mean, just the consistency. Like you said, you've been doing this with him for 2 years. Like basically every night, it's like an event for him. It's like, all right, my parents are gonna tuck me in. They're gonna read to me. I'm gonna fall asleep with a book in my hand. That's just like the royal treatment right there. Like that.
I'm telling, we trying right now to make sure he gets the best of the best. It's really interesting. So like, we'll read the same books to him because he'll like whatever book he likes, and then he'll get to a point where he'll have it memorized, and like he'll read it to us. Like he'll like have the whole book that we'll read to him memorized. And I remember the first time that he did that, I was like, is my son a genius? Is he just a genius? Like, no, he's been reading the same book for a month. Like, he has memorized.
He's had the same thing fed to him for a month, so he knows a little bit about it. Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. Yeah. Right now, my son really likes like anything vehicle related. So he has a book called Good Night Construction Site, and like it's so funny. Like when I read it, because it rhymes, right? So when I read it, I'm just kind of like, I'm tired, so I'm just reading it. But him and my wife, when they read it, it's like an entire adventure. It's like there's voices and stuff, and I'm like, man, y'all got it going on. And I'll be like listening in a little bit just to like hear it, and my son really enjoys it. My wife is the story reader for our family because that's their routine. So
does he actually request that your wife reads it instead of you because he knows you're kind of just phoning it in or something, or?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been nights when he's mama read it. I try, like I give a good effort, but she just, I don't know, she just got the animated voices for sure.
Yeah. How did you and your wife as a unit kind of figure out the right system or methods to, God, this feels like a Tim Ferriss podcast for parenting right now. Like I didn't mean it that way, but like, no. Just I'm curious, like how did you guys develop the system? You know, is it your first kid?
Yeah. Silas is our first kid. We figured it was trial and error. I would say if there's one defining quality of my wife is that she's very detail oriented, and like really wants to be as knowledgeable about the things that she cares about as possible. And so our son is like the thing she cares about most in life, and she wanted to be the best mother she could be. And so one of the things that comes of that is like research, asking questions, talking to other parents, being a part of parenting groups and stuff like that. And one of the things that she came across is like, hey, being consistent in the things that we do with him really are going to benefit him in the long run. And so we started creating these routines to like help him with everything, and like it like sticks. And like what's interesting, and for at least for me, because I'm more of like, let's learn on the fly. I would say that's probably like what I am. It's that I get to learn a lot. And so she's like, okay, here's what the research says. Let's try it. And then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's at the end of the day, we give it our best. And I think that if this is like a parenting themed moment, I would say that if you are a parent and you have if you're fortunate enough to have a co-parent, communication between you two about how you want to do things before you do them really is beneficial. Like, we want to do this way, and we're going to be consistent about it, and we're going to hold each other accountable to make sure that we're consistent about it. Will benefit your child more than anything else.
Have you found that your level of communication with your partner has like improved or gone up in quality, like since becoming a parent? Like maybe by necessity or otherwise?
So my wife is a social worker, and I have my degree in psychology, and we both have been working in social services for over a decade. And so our communication is, I would say, top tier communication.
Tier one. Yeah.
Tier one. As she is as she is good with being detail oriented, I feel I am as good in communication. Like that's like I refuse to have or be in a relationship that has yelling involved. Like me and my wife have been together 10 years this year. 10 years this is it the 10 years this year? Jeez. We're awesome.
Is your wife camera shy? Can we get her on the camera for a bit, or is that okay?
My wife is studying. She's in her last dredges of grad school. She gets her master's in 6 weeks. 5 weeks. Oh my God, 5 weeks. Holy smokes. And so she's studying really, really hard. And if I pull her away, she'll say hi, but then she'll look at me and like, why did you make me do this? You know I'm busy.
Right. Right. Plus, she can't hear me anyway because I'm in your headset, right? So.
See, yeah, he's totally pressuring me right now, babe. He's totally pressuring me right now. And I'm just like, hey, listen, I'm not trying to be in trouble. Listen, you're going to get me in trouble. That's all that's going to happen.
Hey, man, happy wife, happy life. That's what they say, right?
Happy wife, happy life, indeed.
Yes.
But, so we've been together 10 years. And one of the things that, was, really important for me is I don't want to argue. We can disagree. We can totally disagree. And we can even we can have light arguments, but I don't want us to ever yell at each other in anger. And so that was a huge thing for me. And I think that has really translated in how we communicate with each other now, but also how we communicate with our son. And I think that has been really successful.
That's really important, right? Because I think if you're a kid and you hear yelling in the house all the time, that's just not conducive to anything, right? But having said that, have there been times where you kind of just have you ever been close to the edge with your son? Just kind of he's really not cooperating, or is it always just a little bit of talking civilly and raising your voice a little bit? That's usually enough to settle the situation or to have some kind of understanding.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're human, right? If he does something out of pocket, we're gonna correct him pretty quickly. I think that the biggest one is not screaming at your child, and not screaming at your child is probably the one thing that we don't do. But we definitely have to have a firm voice in moments, and I think that's something that every parent is gonna do. You just your kid throws something and shatters a window, you're just going to be like, what? Why? Oh my God. Why? Why did this just happen?
Yeah.
And there's just little things. Right now, Silas is potty training. And today, peed all over the floor. And it's bro, why? You don't, why? It's just great. Now I have to talk to him and remind him and do all these things. And it's just us being consistent with him, but it's more us expressing to each other so frustrated, rather than us getting in his face and be I'm frustrated with you. We need him to understand how to express himself, because we've seen in our professional work, we've seen when people have not been able to get that type of treatment, and what can come of, improper responses to anger and stuff like that. And the one thing we want for him is to be able to regulate himself. And hopefully that's what happens with the way we're raising him. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, no, that's good. Just full disclosure, I talked to some of your fellow content co-creators, and they mentioned that Hire's a really good parent. He's an excellent husband and parent. So I'm trying to piece it all together. I feel like I'm starting to maybe it's just your way with your partner, with your family. That's it shows. It's good.
Yes, I am a family man. That is a characteristic you could definitely describe. It's cool when you have something you cherish it.
Nice. So I'm also wondering, because you mentioned that both you and your partner are have kind of a social work background, or are you currently still in the field? You had mentioned on your podcast that you just found a new gig. How's that? How's that going?
Good. Yeah. So right now, I work with former foster youth. A lot of the work that I do is housing former foster youth and getting them into permanent, sustainable housing. And then I also run a drop-in center for LGBTQIA plus youth, ages 12 to 20. And so a lot of the work that I do is ensuring young people have the ability to transition into school or work, or be able to have a safe place. I would say that would be like the majority of what I do, for sure.
What's your motivation for doing something like that?
Oh man, making the world a better place. There's a lot of, I think that if there's any intrinsic motivating factors, I grew up in a time and environment that was intense. And so there was just a lot of things that were happening that as I grew up, I knew that those experiences were experiences I could relate to and have maybe a little bit of help, or be able to give a little bit of help to those who are going through it. And be able to give them some of the guidance that I wish I had when I was going through some of the things, and some of my family was going through some of the things that they were going through. I wish someone would be able to tell me, hey, if you want to help your family member through this, you may want to do it this way, because if you do it the way you're currently doing it, they may not ever be able to build the skills they need to succeed, versus if you do it this way, they might build those skills and they may not need you as much in the future. And then that turned into working in this field and really, really enjoying it. And then there's just moments you have with other people that you find like, oh, wow, like I've helped you greatly. And, now you are living your best life, making $1 billion a day because you chose to work in business and I didn't. And those are just the choices we have.
I imagine that you're a father figure to some of the youth that you work with, right?
I definitely try to be a mentor. More than anything. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think that a good example right now, I'm working with former foster youth. And though I would say an important thing to understand is that they may not have ever had a father figure. And anyone who tries to resemble that or becomes the target of years of trauma.
Okay.
Right. And so like for me, I really try to make sure that they know that I'm there for them, and that if they need support, I got them in that way. But I never want to say like, you know what, I'm very disappointed in you. That's not something I would say to like one of my youth, because I don't want them to internalize that as, oh, dad is mad at me, and then dredge up all of the feelings about the concept of dad. Right. And so, yeah, so I try my best to provide support and really try and make sure that the needs of the youth that I serve are being met, as well as find ways to connect where other people may have failed in trying to connect. A good example is like, we have a youth who really likes music, right? And historically, they've had a really hard time connecting with staff, really like oppositional to the authority. And so I asked them, what are you into? And they said music. And I was like, all right, that's cool. And this is the Magic community, right? Let me try and find ways to raise money to build a music studio for you. And so I reached out to the Magic community. I was like, hey, does anyone want to donate do you have any music equipment, or do you want to donate money to help me build the studio? And in like not even a day, I raised like $2,000, and we built the music studio for the youth. And so I was able to provide that and like get that installed. And now these youth have that access to a music studio, which is great. But it shows them that like they can trust me and that I'll have their back, without giving them the same feelings that like, oh, dad bought me something new. Instead it's, oh, Alex, this support person is helping me out. And that's what I want for them. That's what I want them to have that. because they're going to build, they're called permanency connections. They're going to build permanency connections with people. And we just want to make sure those connections are healthy, that they understand boundaries, that they are able to keep creating those, because the worst thing is for a youth not to be able to do that and then live a life frustrated because they just want to be connected and they want to feel community, and they can't build that in a healthy way. And that's one of the reasons programs like the programs that I work for exist, because we are helping create those interpersonal skills and those independent living skills so that youth can transition into adulthood successfully.
When you say permanency, does that mean that they continue to have a relationship with you even as they get older, or it's kind of like or does it mean something else?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So permanency connections are connections to people that will be in your life forever, or for as long as you are, or that you
as long as possible, basically.
As long as possible, yeah. And so a lot of the time when we're thinking permanency connections with former foster youth, we're talking about like getting connected with uncle, with aunt, with maybe it could be a friend. It could be a friend you've known for a long time. But we want to make sure that you also have the ability to make new permanency connections, so new friends and new things. But the issue is that when you're 18 and 19, you may not make the best friends. I
hear that.
Right? A lot of the friends that you're making may not have the best intentions. And it's important that we are ensuring the youth have the skills to be able to identify when someone's healthy for them and when someone's toxic for them. And what that can look like. Because it can look fine on the outside. Like, oh, you met a new person and they just want to go out and drink all the time and party? And, oh, that sounds like a great friend. Are they a great friend? Because when you were going through it the other week, they were nowhere to be seen. They were out partying. Oh, wait. You needed more. Okay. What does more look like in friendship? Right. It's like, oh, someone will come over, bring you some cookies or something when you're feeling blue and hang out with you. That's what you want. You want support like that. Oh, okay. I can identify that. Okay. I know someone who does that for me. It's this guy. He does this all for me all the time. And okay, great. That's a permanency connection.
I see. So it's about also giving them the tool set to assess, to analyze, to build meaningful connections. And what I also like about the music studio example is that it's really more about doing, right? At the end of the day, at least my personal philosophy, it's like you can say a lot of things, but I think if you do something for that kid, it really shows that you care, as opposed to just saying like, oh yeah, you like music, I like music too, right? So I mean, there's value in that, but to build a connection. But I love that you kind of took that extra step, and also the fact that the funds came from the community. So it's not like Alex or Hire, like you actually took money out of your own pocket. Like that's not really the point. It's more about like you're making a deliberate choice to help, and also maybe to let them know that, okay, there's actually a community out there that's like, that's nice and helpful, right, in the right ways. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the community is amazing. Oh my gosh, there's like some wonderful humans that are in the community that are very charitable, and I couldn't have done some of the work that I've done without them.
Yeah. So what were you like as a kid? Maybe this is like time to go into a little bit of your backstory. Like, are you a Cali native, first of all?
Kind of. I'm a Cali transplant. Okay, I was born in Minnesota. Let's just get out of the way. I was born in Minnesota. Okay. And I lived there for 2 years.
Born in the cold. Yeah.
Born in the cold. And then we moved right on out to California when I was like 2. So I don't even remember Minnesota. Okay. But I still have a lot of family.
I mean, come on,
there.
Basically Californian, right? Let's just
basically, but like I just have to put it out there. Like, listen, I understand if I say I was born in California, people are going to be upset because Minnesota is the opposite, basically. And so, but yeah, I was raised in California, and I lived in Northern and Central California, for my childhood, and then I moved down to Southern California, San Diego, when I was 19. That was a long time ago.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and then so as a kid, I was a curious kid. I had hobbies. I was a hobby kid. I'd always get into stuff, and so this is actually like This actually makes a lot of sense. So I always liked hobbies. So like when I was a kid, I yo-yos and marbles and Game Boy, like Pokemon, like all of this stuff was super like interesting to me. I was always fascinated by learning new stuff. And I remember I collected like Pokemon cards, and I was like, oh, this is really, really fun. And then I collected Digimon cards, and then I started collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I was like, oh man, Yu-Gi-Oh is so much fun. And I liked Yu-Gi-Oh because it was the first game that I could play, because I didn't play Pokemon. I just wanted to collect the cards, but I did want to play Yu-Gi-Oh, and I played Yu-Gi-Oh hardcore. Oh man, I was really into it. And this was like when it first came out. So this is like 2000, 2004, 2003.
Okay, you were Yu-Gi-Oh OG.
Yeah. So I don't know what they call it. Best of all time. So the GOAT format in Yu-Gi-Oh, where you can like the cards I'd play, like Chaos Dragon and like Envoy of the End and Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, Yatagarasu, all these like cards. I'm sorry, I'm just saying, spitballing all these crazy cards that are really broken in Yu-Gi-Oh. And I used to play that, and I was like really, really into it. And me and my friends, like, we graduated high school, we went to college, and we all lived together. My best friends, we all lived together for a really long time, and we still play Yu-Gi-Oh in the house. And I remember like, man, this is really fun. And then it got a little burned out on it, and then we ended up. Some of my friends moved back to Central California, and I stayed in San Diego. And when they moved back, they got into a new game called Magic the Gathering, and I was like, oh man, I don't know this game. Like this, they're like, oh, it's a lot like Yu-Gi-Oh, but more balanced. And I was like, more balance? That sounds boring. Like, what is happening?
What's balance?
What's balance about this? Come on. And I was like, there's a place in San Diego. It's not around anymore. But it was called Fred's Crazy Comics, or Crazy Fred's. No, Fred's. It was just Fred's. And I went there and I was like, hey, Fred, I want to learn how to play this game. My friends are playing in Santa Barbara, and I don't know anything about Magic. And he's like, okay, well, what do you like? And I was like, I don't really know. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And he's like, okay, what did you like about Yu-Gi-Oh? And I was like, I don't know, big, crazy things. And he's like, all right, you're going to play green. You're going to play green. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, what does green do? And he's like, green, it's just big creatures. And I was like, okay. And this was in 2009. And so when I started playing, he was like, okay, I'm going to show you these cards. And real soon after that, the Zendikar block dropped, and Rise of Eldrazi came out. And he's like, okay, so you can play these elves, right? And then you can play this one elf, it's called Elvish Piper. And what happens is that you can activate Elvish Piper and put this really big creature named Emrakul into play. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's super cool. And so I got really into that. I was like, let's do that. Let's keep doing that. I like this. And I remember I played really like I wanted to learn. I was trying to learn all this thing. And at the time, so in that standard block, tribal elves was the big thing. And so you could do turn one forest into Llanowar elf, turn 2 forest into another Llanowar elf, or another like 1 mana dork, and then turn 3 you could cast your Elvish Piper, which is fine. Like that's a fine play. And then turn 4 you could have Emrakul, like
just like
turn
that.
4, just like that.
Yeah.
Turn 4 Emrakul, and like it at the time in standard, like what do you do? How do you just because it's gonna get back to my turn, I'm gonna attack you, you have to sack 6 permanents, like bruh. This is brutal. And so that was like my favorite time, and I just immediately got snatched into it. I was like, this is super, super fun. And that carried me for a bit, and then my cards rotated out of standard, and I was like, what? I can't play all these cool cards. What's going on?
So Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have that standard rotation kind of deal, right?
Nah. Okay. Nah, Yu-Gi-Oh you can play cards from Yu-Gi-Oh in in a tournament today. They have a really tight ban list, like a really tight ban list. Yeah. That's like that they add cards I think it's because it's not a multiplayer format. There's like no there might be multiplayer variations. I don't know if that exists, but there definitely is a one-on-one thing. So their ban lists are like really heavily moderated, similar to like our standard or our modern, because it's a 1v1 format and like it's tournament, and so it's pretty regulated. And so when I realized my cards were going to rotate out of standard, I was like, oh man, this is tough. And I was like having a hard time finding more and more decks that I enjoyed. And so I started fading out of Magic. And then in 2015, I started getting back into it because my friends were like, oh, we're playing Commander and we can play all your old cards again. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll check it out. What do? You have one of each type in your deck. One card, one of its type. And I was like, one? You can't have four? That's dumb. I don't like that. He's like, oh, and you have a commander they have to play around. And I was like, wait, what? I hate this. This is weird. I don't like this at all. Like I wish I want to play elves. He's like, you can play your elves. And I was like, what? He's like, and you can play the old elves too. And I was like, say what? Wait, tell me more. And I ended up playing a bunch of really like janky decks, and then a person was like, oh, you can use one of my decks, and it's like, what do you like? And I was like, oh, do you have anything with elves? And like, oh yeah, let me show you this Selvala deck. I was like, okay. And I played Selvala Heart of the Wilds, and I remember my first game with it. It was turn one. It was land, dork, pass. Turn two, land, Selvala. Turn three, land. And I was like, what does this creature do? And they're like, oh, play it. And I was like, okay. And I played it, and it was 1 mana. It was a 12/12 for 1 mana. I was like, this is wild. I was like, but it just dies? I don't get it. And so I played it, and they were like, okay, you have a couple triggers on the stack. And I was like, okay. He's like, first you have the Selvala trigger. You can draw a card. And I was like, oh, okay. And the card's Phyrexian Dreadnought. And so I draw a card, and they're like, okay, now what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I have another trigger on it. And I was like, it's just going to die. And he's like, it could die. What else can you do? And I was like, can I tap Selvala for 12 mana right now? They were like, yes, you can. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can do more. I can do way more. And like, I remember tapping Selvala, and I sacked it to, to Momentous Fall, which is an instant, sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to its power. And I was like, I can just draw 12 now? Wait a minute. This is insane. They're like, yes, it is. It's pretty nuts, right? And I was like, I'm addicted. That was it. That was that one game. It literally like hooked me. And I was like, okay, I want to build this deck. I want Selvala. I want to play it. This is so much fun. And I just kept playing over and over, just like loving the deck. And when I first started playing it, it wasn't competitive when I first started playing it. Like, I was on Temur Sabertooth and Terracodon and Asceticism and Acidic Slime and Genesis Wave and all these cards that are like really fun, like janky things. But like, I remember
Timmy cards. Yeah.
Big Timmy cards. But I remember my friend didn't like it because I would play, like I would cast Terracodon and then tap Selvala for 9 and then cast Acidic Slime. And they'd be like, dude, you're just going to destroy my lands. You just destroyed, like, I have 3 elephants already, and now you're going to destroy another land? And he's like, mono green land destruction sucks. And I was like, yeah, it does. No, I like it. It's just like, and I just found more and more things. And then I found Lurking Predators, and I was like, oh, this card's insane. And Lurking Predators became a card. And I remember that was a gnarly thing because I was in a pod with 7 people, 7-person pod one time. And I was like getting into like, I was like really trying to get into it. And I remember turn 1 land Dork, turn 2 land Selvala, turn 3 land cast Phyrexian Soul Gorger, tap Selvala for 8, and played Lurking Predators in a 7-person pod. By the time it got back to me, I was a problem. I had so many cards on the battlefield. And my friends were like, why are you playing this deck? Like, this deck is stupid. Like, we're not playing this high power. And I was like, this is just like, I just have a cool commander that does something cool. And
it's just cool jank, right?
It's just cool jank. At that time, it was definitely cool jank. It had no infinites. It just had creatures that could make a lot of mana really quickly. And I learned that I really liked that. I really liked that style of play where I had commanders that could just make a lot of mana. That was like, oh man, I love making a lot of mana, and I love the utility that I can do with the mana, and that was like a big thing for me, for sure.
I'm wondering if like some of your background in Yu-Gi-Oh or like 1v1 Magic, did it influence how what direction you went with your early commander experience, like in terms of ramp or getting into some of that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So the decks that I played when I played Yu-Gi-Oh were decks. They were called Chaos decks. And Chaos decks ran cards like Blockluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, and Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End. And what the main goal of those decks are to, your first turn, try and get creatures into your graveyard and be able to use those creatures to special summon a strong creature. That's like what you're trying to do. And it is it's effectively a reanimator deck. That's like a good way to like think about it, like a reanimator deck. There's a card called Monster Reborn that says take a creature, and in Yu-Gi-Oh it's take a monster, I think, right? Take a monster and put it from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's what Monster Reborn does. It's reanimate.
So it's like a reanimate / show and tell, kind of shoot your thing into play. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a creature named Dark Magician of Chaos, and that creature says when it enters the battlefield, get a sorcery from your graveyard and put it into your hand. And so what you can do is there's a card called Painful Choice, and Painful Choice says get 5 cards, separate it into 2 piles, and you get one of the piles. Your opponent chooses which pile. What you do is you have your pile is like 3 Dark Magicians of Chaos and a Monster Reborn and another card. And they usually don't want to give you like one. You make the decision so that they have to give you one of the Blackluster Soldiers, or Blackluster Soldiers, sorry, one of the Dark Magicians of Chaos. And you then can Monster Reborn one of them, get the Monster Reborn back, play Monster Reborn again, get another one back. So reanimate one, get the reanimate back, reanimate another one, get the reanimate back, or get Painful Choice back, play Painful Choice again, do something else like ridiculous. Like it was just like you could win turn 1 so easily. And I loved how fast I could get a ton of creatures onto the battlefield. It was like so addicting. And my decks, the decks I'm most known for outside of Kenrith, do that. So like Selvala gets out creatures huge creatures really fast, and it allows you to do something with those creatures really fast. Kinnan is the exact same way. Like gets out huge creatures really, really quickly. I love that. I love being able to do that. I have a deck that I'm playing right now. It's a Garuda. It's right. It's the companion, right? So I play that as a commander, and what I do is my entire goal is to just cast Garuda, and then like I'll get all these like I have a ton of clones in the deck. I'll just clone out, just keep going, and the main goal is to do a bunch of clones into like Razaketh, and then sack Garuda to get Mnemonic Betrayal, and then cast Mnemonic Betrayal, knowing that my opponents have just milled like 20 or 30 cards.
You're bound to get something there, yeah.
Yeah, right? Like trying to like just huge creatures, just waterfalling out of the deck, having a good time. And it's very like up what I like to do, for sure. Got
it. So going back a little bit, when you were doing the 6-7 person pods, were you in San Diego at that time?
I lived in San Diego, but my friends were from Santa Barbara. # Team Tapsack. That is the
Tapsack.
Tapsack,
okay.
Like when you tap and sacrifice.
Yeah. Ah, okay.
Yeah. And so my buddies, they've been in Magic for a long, long time, way before me ever even touching the format. And they would play there's a bowling alley called Zotos in Santa Barbara, and we would go there and play Magic. They had like a side table room that you could play Magic in, and we would just go there all the time because they were security guards at the bowling alley. And so we would go there and play Magic for hours and hours and hours. Do these crazy 7-person pods, and we had this one guy named Alan, and he would always brew these really awful decks into 7-person pods. Like, imagine playing a pod and then someone casts Forced Fruition.
Yeah. just to make things awkward or funky?
Just to, hey, guess what? I'm playing Necrosaur, and y'all are gonna draw 7 cards every time you cast a spell. Like, nuts, super nuts. It was just like really, really crazy stuff. And it was good. It was just great times. Like those games, the night was the game. Like you play one game, and it's just like it lasts for 4 hours, and everyone's just trying to survive.
What was the importance of the security guards? Was it just so that there was no theft, or was it something else?
Oh, because they were security guards. Like that's why we were able to play in those rooms. Otherwise, we have to rent them out. But there were security guards
so you got some free access. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was was it a connect from one of the players or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you don't know anything about Santa Barbara is a really small town, and like there's not much to do on like any night. And so going to the bowling alley was just like, oh, this is something we could do, and it's easy and it's free, so we're just gonna do that.
Okay, so it was either Magic or bowling. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so when you were playing back then, how did you develop your style, like in terms of just multiplayer dynamics, right? Because multiplayer gaming in general always requires like some aspects of diplomacy and like can you cut deals with people, like can you make alliances? Is that when you like really start to hone that like into what you currently? Because I guess standard Magic now for EDH is 4 players, but like you must have like learned some things back then that you carried over.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is learning how to threat assess things you don't know. When you're playing like these huge pods, it's hard to keep track of everything. Like, because the board states get really complicated, right? It's like, oh, look there's 9 stacks pieces.
There's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's 9 stacks pieces, and there's 7 triggers on every person's turn whenever someone casts a spell. Like that for me was like training on like how to keep track of what's happening. And I think the biggest one in terms of like politics and trying to figure out, oh, I'm gonna try and make a deal with you. Hey, if you do this thing, I'll help you out. Learning when that makes you a target, and then when to like help somebody out with a decision that like is kind of tough. At the end of the day, unless I'm playing specifically in a tournament, like even on like the Playing with Power videos, or even during the Playing with Power videos, like we'll film and someone will make like an egregious misplay. This actually happened recently, where I had a opposition agent and someone tried to gamble, and I was like, oh, we're gonna rewind that. We're just gonna rewind that. Don't do that, because like, one, it makes for poor content, and 2, like, yeah, that's just a boo boo. We would have let you walk it back. Like, that's fine. And so I try and find like the opportunities, because I want to have better games. Like, that's what I want. I want good games. That's all I really care about. And so if we can take this opportunity and learn a little bit, then great. Awesome. The next game we play will be better. That's awesome. And like, I don't know, there also is like times where like I'll politic because I know something about like my deck. And I think this is like a really important thing. If you know something about your deck that offers you an advantage, and this is called and this isn't a term I made up at all. It's called a brewer's advantage. And so when you are, there's a deck called Magda. Magda is a good example. Magda is a deck that not a lot of people are aware of, or were aware of 3-4 months ago. And they knew it existed. They knew it could win, but they didn't see it enough consistently to know how to defend against it. And so in, spoiler alert, I think it was in the last Monarch tournament, the Magda player could win at instant speed, and someone got rid of a thing that would cause him to be able to, that was preventing him from searching his library. And he was able to just win at instant speed, and no one saw it coming. And that's all because brewer's advantage can really like help with your ability to politic and push like certain things around. It's like, oh, hey, if you get rid of that, I'll help you. Great, you got rid of that. You don't know my deck can win once that's gone. And I'm not saying that's how he played it, but it's definitely something that can be utilized. And the only thing you have to be careful of is the politics that come with doing that, because your friends may not trust you as much if you try and like pull the wool over their eyes. And so it's really a balance of doing that, some like a little bit of like, oh, you didn't know I could do this, now you do, it won't happen again. But make sure that you aren't intentionally trying to be a jerk, because at the end of the day, they're your friends and you want to play more games.
Yeah, you want to keep that social equity around. If you're an active play group, that you'll see them again. Mm-hmm. I also think there's probably like a human, like human nature, or there's just a fear element. It's like, if I don't really know what they're running in their deck, if they have the brewer's advantage, I might actually optimize for getting rid of that player ASAP, because they might pull something crazy. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm kind of scared of what I don't know. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Having that so-called advantage or hidden information.
It could be, but like, think about it like this. If you're at a table, okay, I'm gonna pull out some random commanders. If you're at a table with Blue Farm, I don't know, Nagila, and Wart the Raid Mother. And I don't know how familiar you are with Wart the Raid Mother, but that is actually, it's sad to say, but because I'm not so well acquainted with the commander, I actually know Wart just because of like when she was around in the block or in the sets. Yeah. Oh, okay, awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So if you're in a pod, and let's say you're playing your favorite deck, whatever that is, your threat assessment of Wart the Raid Mother might be not as high as Blue Farm or Nagila, because Blue Farm and Nagila are more established decks.
They're known quantities. They're meta, right?
Mm-hmm, so. Yeah. But so I wrote actually a whole thing on this. So when you are in pods with decks that you don't know, your threat of them might be high initially, but your threat assessment of the decks that you know of are gonna incrementally get higher, because you know, oh, he cast a Dark Ritual, we need to focus on him. Oh,
they're doing their thing.
Right, they're trying to do their thing. We got to be really focused. And even if they fail on the Nas, it reminds you that they are able to win very fast. And this deck, this Wart the Raid Mother deck that just played a Llanowar Elf Past, once that is like, oh, Llanowar Elf Pass, that's all they did. They didn't play Dark Ritual. They didn't have a turn 1 Ristic Seti. Like, they can't be that powerful.
Right.
That mindset, like, just...
They're not setting off that alarm, right? So you're only responding to, like, the immediate threat, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And that one turbo player who's trying to win, who's trying to force it through, is now 3v1, right? They're now 3v1. And then the player that no one's really paying attention to, who's like slowly building their board, is now getting stronger. So now the 3v1, they kill the turbo player. Now it's 3v3. But now the Wart the Raid Mother deck, they now have the board state. They were able to catch up. They have 5 or 6 lands now. They have all their dorks. They were able to cast Wart, and they're now casting their and they cast their Allosaur Shepherd. And so their green spells can't be countered, but that wasn't, we didn't really care about that, because they just cast Wart. What else could happen? And then, all of a sudden there is a, what's the name of the spell I'm thinking of? There is a green spell that says, choose a type, search your or reveal cards from top of your library until you reveal that number of, a number of whatever type you've chosen equal to the number of that type on the battlefield. And so Wart is a goblin warrior, right? Wart is a goblin warrior. And you choose goblin for your first type, and then you conspire it to do a second type. And the second type you choose is warrior. And so you happen to have Kiki Jiki in your battle, in your deck. You put Kiki Jiki on the battlefield, and you also have Zealous Conscripts, which is a warrior. You put that on the battlefield, and then, oh, look, I win now. And you've spent all of your resources fighting the turbo player that you have none for me, and all of my stuff was uncounterable anyways because you let me develop my board. And so it's important to realize that while you are going to keep an eye on the turbo decks, that the real focus should be who's developing their board. Like the turbo player might be developing their board faster, but the not turbo player, the maybe more parasitic deck, is also developing their board. And once this turbo player is gone, who's going to be like in a good position? Oh wait, it's this Worth the Raid Mother deck. Weird. This isn't a good deck. That's going to be the thing. This isn't a good deck. Blah blah blah. But it's because they weren't getting solo attention. I think this is part of the dynamic of multiplayer that's really interesting. Is that any game could turn into a game of arch enemy, and and when we get into that mindset, it becomes a pack mentality. And this comes back to like just some of the weird, interesting social dynamics of humans, where we want to attack together because we're now unified, and then we're now all of us are now on our own again. Wait, now it's 2 against 1, but the person who we're against, we don't have enough firepower to stop them, and it's just really interesting. It's an interesting dynamic.
How do you get better at that sort of multiplayer threat assessment? Is it just reps, or is it studying the game, or something else?
I think it's a mix. I think that the biggest thing I can say, reps are going to help you more than anything else. Playing against people who are better than you is going to be the thing I recommend more than anything else. I have gotten my butt kicked a lot. I still get my butt kicked. Because there's a lot of people that I think are really, really good at Magic, and I'm still learning, things that, because I didn't start playing Modern. Like I didn't play Legacy. And there's things you learn in Legacy, specifically Legacy, Modern. I would say maybe Vintage. Vintage is a little bit of its own monster, but specifically in Legacy, like how to understand cards, because it can get really complicated. So something that if you were to walk away with it for this, if you don't play CDH but you wanted to get better, cards that make other cards change zones easily are generally good cards. And when I say this, I mean cards that can put cards from your library to the graveyard, from your graveyard to your hand, from the battlefield to your hand. Like the cards that can do that really well are decent. So a good example of a card that's really good at doing this is Bolas's Citadel.
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah. Bolas Citadel allows you to play cards from the top of your library for free, essentially, right? As long as you have 30 life, you should be fine. Really good at doing that. Really, really, really good. Elsha is a commander. Elsha is really good at doing that too, right? Timna Krom, really good at putting cards from your library to your hand. Really good at doing that, right? And so when you're making your decks, you want to think, what am I trying to do? And some decks are trying to put cards from their deck to the battlefield. Godo is a good example of that. Really, really good at that. It only needs to put one card. And that's the thing, is like the commander tutors for the thing it needs to win. That's really, really powerful. And so when you are when you're doing that, when you're trying to think of what can these cards do, that's a really good way to evaluate threat and how to get better with it. And then playing against people who are simply just better. It's so funny. Every person that, there's a lot of online discords that you can play with. Hashtag playing with power. If you ever subscribe to the Patreon, you can play against us if you want.
Shout out playing with power. Yes.
But so if you every person that I play with online tends to be the person who wins the tournaments at their LGSs, right? So it's the
cream of the crop or of their local region,
right? In their LGS, right? But then they start playing online, and they are like, oh wow, there's so many people that are also maybe at my skill level. And I'm not saying me, but the metaphorical person who's playing online, and then you just get a lot better, because you're starting to play against people who are really, really good. I've had recently, I've been very fortunate to be able to play in some pods where I'm like, oh man, I'm getting demolished. I didn't realize the skill gap was that immense. And it's me winning probably like 30% of my games, which is good, which is really, really good. But it's a stark difference from me winning like 60 or 70% of my games, because I just want to get better. Like I want to get, you know, people who can just see through any type of politic that I'm trying to push out. They just are like, oh yeah, you're trying to play Kinnan? Oh no, Kinnan's gonna die. You're just not gonna have Kinnan. I'm like, dang it! Like you're not even gonna let it one turn every time. Oh, that's you get this lightning bolt. And yeah, so just playing with people better than you a lot of times, and you'll catch on. And then having conversations after the game. What do you guys think I could have done better? Right?
Like a post-game analysis. Okay.
Those are the best, especially in like if you're able to play Magic like in real life. Those post-game like, this is what you could have done better. These are the things I would have done. You probably shouldn't have kept this opening 7. Those are the best for skill building for sure.
You'll have to kind of excuse my ignorance. I admit I don't watch a ton of CEDH gameplay videos, but I am wondering if like I don't see a lot of videos where they do the post-game analysis and or like in-game commentary where it's done like competitive 1v1 commentary, if you know what I mean. Like because when you're watching like a GP or a Pro Tour, they're really trying to like threat assess and like put themselves in that player's shoes. What will they do? It's very serious, right? And of course, it's color commentary, but most of it is kind of like, what's the play? Like, why did they do that? Analysis. What should they do next? And they also do the sort of interviews with people after the game, like, how did you think it like, what could you have done differently, etc. Or sometimes like someone's streaming and they'll talk about their own plays, right? I don't seem to see as much of that in the kind of multiplayer formats, including CEDH, and I'm wondering if that's like a gap that should be addressed, if you know what I mean, based on this conversation.
Yeah. So
I guess it's sort of the fundamental challenge where a lot of people maybe watch Magic content more for entertainment than to actually learn and level up. And you're also performing in a way, because when you play in front of a camera for a recording, you're also trying to entertain as well as have fun and win. So I'm wondering if maybe my question is flawed from that sense.
I think that there is some content creators that like have a little bit of that. I think Game Nights has some of that, where they talk, but I don't think it's a lot of their content isn't necessarily geared towards CDH. I can think of a handful of creators that do a little bit of commentary, but I think what you're looking for and what I'm interpreting is like this is the play he's trying to do. It's really challenging because he has these barriers, or they have these barriers, and there are some opportunities for them to maybe exploit hand sizes, or, you know, if they do a Wheel of Fortune, you know, they're looking to draw into these 7 cards because that's just enough for them to use an Underworld Breach or whatever. So, you know, there's a ton of things that you could do. The best place I could say if you're looking for that are looking at like VODs or replays of tournament commentary. Monarch has it, Eminence has it, where they have these casters. Playing with Power has it. We'll have casters like talk, and then you can rewatch that and get a little bit of understanding when you're but it's from the commentators specifically. It's not from the players. I think what would be amazing, and I actually agree with you, there is not enough of this content. So if there's anyone who wants to do this, I 100% support it. If you were to have like a very well edited video that was chopped up and like was able to skip through a lot of the stuff, like, I don't want to see you search. I don't even want to see you play lands. I just want to see your plays. Like, how do you play the game of Magic, right?
Maybe focusing on like key moments, and then have the person kind of talk through their own plays as commentary, right? Like, what were they thinking at the time, and like, how did they end up on option A versus B? Like, because those are kind of interesting for someone like me with more of a competitive background, like in terms of understanding that.
Yeah, oh, for sure. No, that's actually like, I think that's needed. I talked to there's another Alex and Viverus, who is a legacy player, and they recently got into like competitive CDH or CDH, and they're on it. And so, speaking of people who defeat me easily, but like one of the things was breaking down and like not only like magic, but like the fundamentals of what you're doing, and giving people an understanding of here's why I'm making this decision, will also help people brew better decks. And so like there's a card called Strike It Rich. Are you familiar with Strike It Rich? Strike It Rich.
I am, but maybe you can explain it for the listeners. Yeah.
So Strike It Rich, it just says, it's one red. It says make a treasure. That's all it does. And then it has Encore, which you can cast it from your graveyard and make 3 more treasures for 4 mana. Not the greatest spell. Like it just is what it is. However, it does something really, really specific, and it makes a treasure, which you can use later, which is fine, but also it increases storm count. Really important. It increases storm count, and decks that care about storm should be playing this kind of card. You have another spell. Usually, Strike It Rich is paired with one of 2 commanders, Rograk or Krark. And Rograk is just a 0 mana red commander. Again, increases storm count. Cast Rograk, cast your Strike It Rich. You already have Storm of 2. That matters. That so matters, because there's decks that use cards like Brain Freeze, which mills you for each spell you've played, and you can win with Underworld Breach and Brain Freeze if you simply have a Strike It Rich, right? A Strike It Rich, and you cast Rograk. Like, it gives you enough storm to do the things. And so it's so important to realize that these little card choices and understanding why these weird cards are in a deck that seem innocuous but are actually really, really strong or can be really, really powerful, why they exist. And for me, that's been like a big thing. And I love the idea. And I'm like really running with this because I really like this idea, and I want this to stick with someone, to make content that dives into plays with the player and have the player be like, hey, this is what I was thinking. It didn't work out, but I was really trying to do this. I was really trying to push this, Thassa's Oracle, because I thought I could do it, but everything got countered and the world sucks, whatever. But yeah, that's what I think about that.
How did you even make the transition to CEDH in the first place?
That was a natural progression. I like hobbies. I'm a big hobby person. And CEDH, so Selvala is a CEDH like commander already, and Selvala only wants to get more powerful. That's all like the deck really does. It wants to be more efficient. And I learned of like cards that you could do, or not you could do, that you could use to like make Selvala do its thing. And then someone was like, have you heard of Brostorm? And I was like, no, what's Brostorm? And like, oh yeah, it runs cards like Great Oak Guardian. And I was like, Great Oak Guardian sounds horrible. It's a 6 mana, untap your stuff. Like, why would you play this? I've never been so wrong before. I accept it now. I accept it. I remember the first time I cast Great Oak Guardian, and I was like, oh wait, it makes everything big, and then it untaps everything. Wait, I can bounce it back to my hand with Temur Sabertooth. Oh, so I can recast this and make infinite mana, make my dudes super, super big, and then just kill everybody? Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
It's like a Rube Goldberg contraption that you're just figuring out in real time in your head.
Yeah.
Okay, these all fit together.
Yeah, exactly. You all of a sudden, you're like, oh, wow, this is it. And that feeling felt great. I really liked that. And I wanted to explore what other decks could like do and how I could get that feeling from other decks. And I ended up sticking with Selvala Brostorm for a long time. And then I played Prime Speaker Vanifar. Prime Speaker Vanifar. Yeah. That was my like second love. And then I discovered 5 colors, and I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. Yeah. The Tazri was my third CEDH deck. Tazri Food Chain before Nib Mizzet was printed, and then Nib Mizzet was the Food Chain commander for a whole set. And then right after first sliver got spoiled, and then I was on Food Chain for a bit, and then I transferred to Kenrith. Kenrith was my first deck that I was like, okay, I'm going to buy the cards for it. Because before that, I didn't have any of the duels, didn't have anything. And then I'd been playing Magic since 2009 up to this point. I was like, let me trade in this collection and get some of these cards. And that was right before everything like blew up, like before like everything got really crazy expensive. The cards were expensive then too, but they weren't like, I wasn't spending $1,000 on a land. Like that wasn't a thing. And so I played Kenrith a lot, and that turned into Kenrith Evolution, because before it was like Flash Hulk stuff, all this like, Flash Hulk, so good. Oh my gosh, Magic. And then, but like, I really liked the mid range. I really liked that. I thought that was really, really fun. And so I started playing a lot of Kenrith. I played Kenrith so much that I was like, all right, let's like try to get this to be legit. And I started playing it everywhere. And
so Kenrith became your project. Like you wanted to make sure that it became viable in your way.
Yeah, I wanted the version, because there was a couple of versions of it already, but I wanted the version that I was playing to be like the Kenrith deck. Like, oh, that's like the number one Kenrith deck. And so I spent a lot of time on it. And there's a lot of people that helped, like so many people, like Shaper, Braden, Alton, like Comedian, like all these like guys, like there's a ton of people that helped.
Can you tell me when it was that you like started doing more like online, I don't know if the right term is like partnership, but just started working with people to exchange ideas? Because like you had mentioned like, there's Discords and there's like ways to play webcam CEDH or EDH. But like, was there some kind of demarcation when you started to like more actively like work with people online on ideas and things like that? Yeah.
So when so I started playing online more because I was noticing that I was kind of far from any game store, and I wanted to play during the week. And I was like, well, maybe I can play online, right? And I did the MTGO thing for a bit, and I didn't really like it. And someone was like, you could just get a webcam and play the webcam to your playmat. I was like, oh, what? That's sick. And I was like, well, let me find. And I went to Play EDH. It was my first online Discord. And then I found the CDH Nexus was my second. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I am like so happy about this. And I started playing a lot there. And that's where like I really started getting into Magic, because prior to that, it was a majority of it was like LGS stuff, and everyone there is playing the same kind of power level, which isn't very high because no one can afford the cards. Like, they're ridiculously expensive. And so when I started playing online, people were like, oh, you can proxy stuff. I was like, oh, what? I don't even know what that word means. Because all of my decks at that time were like, they didn't need to be proxied. The cards were cheap enough. Like, and then I started just playing a lot, just playing on these like forums, and I noticed that my games were getting better, but also that I was starting to like meet more people who were interested in the same decks, and we'd just spend hours just theory crafting and trying to figure out like what is like the best cards to put in these decks. And with Kenrith, that was like a big part of that. Of just like talking about commanders and trying to figure out like what's the best commander and what's the best strategy for this commander. And I found myself just like getting some cool roots with some really, really awesome people. I would say like of that, that's where I like really had the philosophy that playing with people who are better than you will make you better. It was just me just getting my face bashed in by the community. I would say the person that probably beat me the most was the person who has the most wins against me is Ashani, or is Jamaican. Jamaican is another guy from Playing with Power. I've known him for a really long time, and he has beaten me more exclusively than any other Magic person. Like, ever. Like, it's crazy. He's crushed me so many times. He's such a good Magic player. It's insane. But he also helped me build like 100 decks or so.
Where do you think this comes from? Like, because I know that Magic players, usually people who stay in Magic are able to withstand the losing, kind of pick themselves back up, try to figure out how to improve their game, which sounds like that's definitely what you did on your in your path. There's other players that just kind of get frustrated maybe, and they want to stick to casual, or they may even just opt out of playing the game entirely because they're just not that into it. So you being in the first category, where do you think you get that from? Just sort of like the mental toughness to be like, I'm losing, but I still want to keep grinding and still want to figure out how I can get better.
Learning how to enjoy a game is really important. Like, I've enjoyed many games that I've lost, like a lot of games that I lost. And I care about a good game. That's what I care about. Like, if I lose, I lose. Like, but like, it's a game. It's a game. It's a game. It's a game. So
you don't get emotional about it, or you've learned to manage it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I get emotional about games where I messed up. It's like, right. If someone has a
misplay or something.
Yeah. If I do Thassa's Oracle, right? Thassa's Oracle, and I cast Demonic Consultation, and someone counters my Demonic Consultation, then okay, they stop me. I didn't mess up. But if I like cast my Thassa's Oracle, but I don't have the mana to cast a Demonic Consultation, like I tapped it out wrong. Like, that's my mistake, and I get frustrated with myself. But like, getting frustrated from losing games in Commander specifically is most easily solved by learning how to appreciate like a good game. I love playing a good game. Like, oh man, that game had a lot of interaction. We all tried, like all this cool stuff was happening. And then a person won, like, hey, great job. Like, you did a great job piloting your deck. That's awesome. Let's play another game. Because that's what you can do. I can play another game. And if you find yourself always losing, there's probably something in your strategy that is faulty. And I have found that, like, if you're always losing because you're always trying to go for it, then you probably should stop trying to go for it. Like, you should probably wait a turn, right? Yeah. Wait a turn. Let someone else absorb all the interaction, because it seems like you're using all of it, and then the person who goes after you is winning because everyone's used all their interaction on you. And I think that's just like a really important piece, learning how to enjoy when people are interactive, when the game is highly interactive. Yeah. And then some people just don't like that. Some people don't like having to like think that in-depthly about a game that can be simple sometimes. And everyone's spells resolve. Oh, those good days.
Would you say that enjoyment equals winning for you personally, or is it something else?
It's definitely something else.
Like,
yeah,
it's definitely something else. Like, you had mentioned, for example, not misplaying, right? Like, you can't control other people, what they do, but you can control what you do. So like playing, it sounds like playing like within your parameters, or like playing as well as you can, is a part of enjoyment, right? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
If your barometer for fun is if I don't win, I don't have fun, then multiplayer Magic is not for you. Single player will be for you because your win rate is like 50-50. So you have considerably more wins, but in multiplayer, like the average win rate is 25%, which is low.
Just by virtue of the baseline, right?
Yeah.
There are 4 players.
Yeah. So you have to expect that. And if you expect anything more than that, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, at some point, it's, I don't know.
Yeah. So I find this interesting because you decided not to go down the modern legacy route, and you continued on to the multiplayer route from the bowling alley to now, right? I assume. So is that the main criteria for you? Is that your enjoyment is on these vectors or axes, and therefore you decided to go this way? Or am I simplifying?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I enjoy playing the game because I enjoy brewing decks. I enjoy brewing decks. That's like one of my favorite things to do. And so a part of that enjoyment comes from putting a strategy into a deck that no one has seen or is really underutilized, and then using it to great effect and seeing like someone be like, whoa, I've never seen that before. And be like, yeah, it's cool, huh? Yeah, I'll put that in my deck. Oh, sick. I'm glad you like that. That's cool. That to me is really exciting.
So I guess that leads to my question is like, when you want people to, or when you want to develop that Kenrith deck so that your build is the more popular one or the more ubiquitous one, where does that come from? Like, because like in some respects, like building a Magic deck, whether it's Commander or not, is self-expression, right? It's about expressing yourself. But there's also a part of it maybe being now we're getting into kind of like the content creator or like public person territory, where it's like there's always this kind of thing where Magic players want to be known for X. Like, I want to be associated with that. So for you, like what motivates you in kind of wanting to have that legacy, no pun intended, for your build?
Yeah. So this is actually an interesting question. So recently I changed my list on Moxfield for my Kenrith list, and I collaborated with another guy. His name's also Alex, or accepted is his like moniker on Moxfield, and I talked about, because he recently won a tournament with his Kenrith evolution list, and when I think about decks and like brewing decks and like really trying to create something awesome, I also want to remember that there's like there's going to be a matter of relevancy that's going to be a big part of it, and some decks are going to have their phases. A good example is like Timna Thrasios. Timna Thrasios had its phase. Like, it was just top dog for a long time. And now the deck is okay. It's okay. There's Razakats, which is a Timna Thrasios deck, which is really good. But it has a hard time maybe being able to outpace some of the more fast Grixis decks, right?
It's the metagame, and decks have a rise and fall
effect,
effect,
yeah.
right?
And so with my Kenrith deck, I wasn't playing it as much, and the other Alex was, and I was talking to him about, I want to make sure that the deck stays relevant. Like, I want to make sure that the deck stays really, really strong, very, very consistent, and our lists are similar. But I want your list to have more of the spotlight. So I switched over the lists, and it's still like the same idea, right? It's this mid-range Kenrith plan, mid-range good stuff. But the list is now fully updated, and it has won tournaments. And the list is called A2 Evo. Really excited. A2 Evo. 2 Alexes, A2s. Because I want people to see the stuff. Like, I want people to like see a list and be inspired by it. Be inspired and want to make their own versions, make their own changes. Like that to me is really exciting. There's gonna be decks that are gonna be known. Like Winota is a deck that's just known. It's a really popular deck. But I want the flip side of it is, I know how to play Boros stacks. I know how to play that now because I played a lot of Winota. I know to play 5-color mid-range because I played a lot of Kenrith. Oh, great, awesome. I'm glad that your game has improved and you can now play better games.
Is it okay for you if people label you as the player known for the Kinnan deck or the Kenrith deck? Is that something that it's good, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I put a lot of time and effort. I think I have over 1,000 games on both decks. And like, that is like, if that's what I'm known for, then awesome. That's great. I would like to ensure that people don't tie their identities to what they've made. Like, if I'm known for being the Kenrith guy, that's great if people know me by that, but that's not how I I identify myself. I'm not like, oh, I'm the guy who brewed Kenrith, or I'm the guy that brewed Kennen.
Yeah.
I'm
How
just.
do you identify yourself then?
I'm a Magic the Gathering player.
Excellent.
Yeah. I like to play, like, when I tell like strangers, like, oh yeah, I play a game. Oh yeah, I play a game. I play a card game. Because, like, I don't know, it's a hobby. It's something I enjoy. Like, it's not who I am. It's just something that I like to do. And the who I am part comes in, like, trying to build other people up to, like, connect with who they want to connect with. Like, that's what I want to be known as. Like, oh, Alex helped me meet, you know, this humans of magic, right? Like, oh, what? Oh, that's awesome. You met James? Oh, James is great. Yeah. Have you been on this podcast?
Not a great example. I'm the lowest rung on that totem pole, but yeah.
Oh man. But like, that's the thing, is that like it's yeah, like everyone starts off somewhere. Like, everyone has, like, my podcast, like Late Nights, has like 235 subscribers, and we've been around for, Late Nights has been around for a year. We've been around for a year. And like, it's just like, it just is what it is. Like, it's fine. Like, and you'll have opportunities to collab, and some of your episodes might be like amazing bangers, and some of your episodes might be flops, and you learn from that, and you keep putting out content, and then hopefully from this there might be another person that we get on here who is like more known than I am, and you're like, oh, look at that, you now have like Post Malone on your podcast. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, for sure. Just to backtrack ever so slightly, like, at what point did you become a content creator or became a more public figure? Was it like organic, or was there like a certain point in your life where you became that?
Yeah, I started playing more in tournaments, and I did well in a couple tournaments. And so once I did well in a couple tournaments, I got like asked to do deck techs and play on some people's streams, because they saw, like, they were like, oh wow, like, you play a lot of Magic, and they may have heard of me because I won a recent tournament or something, or not won a recent tournament, but did well in a recent tournament. And then I started creating content in the beginning of the pandemic, like 2020. And it was like, just like, I was just on other people's things, like, oh, and that was, I think that the best piece of advice I can give for any person is just be nice to people, and like, good things will happen. That's all I really did. I was like, oh, let me just be really, really nice and not be a jerk and cause people problems. And look at that. You're asking me to come back to your stream or whatever. And I try not to turn down anything. Like, if you want me to be on your podcast and talk for whatever amount of time, or if you want to talk Magic, or you want me to help you with a deck, like, I rarely will say no. Rarely, unless it's like, I don't have time. Like, I'm sorry. Like, my son wants to go to the park. Can't help you.
Yeah.
Don't know what to tell you. But just being open to like every opportunity, and like, yeah, sure, I'm down. I'll collaborate. Sure. And then knowing, and especially if you have like the, like, wherewithal to see through some people's like facades, like, oh, your intentions aren't really to like get to know me or like anything. You just want my name to maybe be attached to your product, and you're really trying to push your product. And I've seen that, and I've been very wary of like, oh, I've seen this like group of individuals who are trying to do certain things. And as long as you're like, you know, you're a little wary, like, you can be pretty giving and be open to collaborate with whoever you want to collaborate with.
That must be where your social skills and the psych degree and your background really comes into play, man. Like, you can, or even just like, even through playing like multiplayer Magic, you got to know how to read people, especially when you are playing at a high level, right? So that's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, not interesting, but like, that's so important, right? That's so important to like, to see people for who they are, because there are some folks out there who are a little bit more like, I'm not gonna try to say this like necessarily negative, but they're like very transactional, maybe is the way that I would put it. Like, it's not like they're not like predatory, but they're transactional. So
the transactional human can be taxing. But it's definitely, yeah, you just, there's a guy, Ken. Do you know who Ken is? Ken, he's like the Krark guy.
Ken Bauman, right?
Yes. What a wonderful human. What a wonderful human.
He is supposed to be like one of the premier voices in CEDH, according to people who know CEDH and have told me about him. So that's,
Ken,
his reputation precedes him. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Ken is not a transactional human, by the way. But he said something about,
speaking of transactional humans.
Right, yeah, he's not one. he's a gem.
Okay.
He said a CEDH player who has amazing technical skill but average people skill will often do much more poorly than a CEDH player who has amazing people skills and okay technical skills.
Is that in terms of content or in terms of gameplay or both? Or
in terms of both? Like if you have good people skills and decent technical skill, you'll go really far, really far. The hardest part I think of Magic, multiplayer Magic, is you're playing a game against people and you're trying to win. And we talked about it just like for a second. It's like, oh, I just want to win the game. That carries in the game. Oh, you just want to win the game. That's all you're here for. Okay. That's why you make some of the more cutthroat decisions you're making, because you just want to win the game. So you're going to strip mine my only land. Okay, that makes me not really want to play with you, because I know you're going to make plays like that instead of just leaving my land alone and let me play the game of Magic. It's that interaction is like really important. And so how serious do you want to take your games? If you're taking your game so serious that you get upset every time you lose, then like we have to learn how to walk back a little bit. Like, why are we playing this game if we're not having fun?
That's so interesting, because it suggests that you have to really go long term beyond one game. Whereas I think in 1v1, oftentimes you don't really care about that, right? If I may generalize, like you are just wanting to win. Like it's, maybe this is a weird thing that I'm holding on to, but it's just like the reason why I've been mostly 1v1 is because I feel like it's more pure that way. Like when the rules are like the objectives, I don't, it's not even about fun or enjoyment. It's about all players understand the objective. Now, of course, you can like circumvent it because some people want to win in their own way. And I play Legacy, and that's certainly the case. People want to win with their brews, right? You mentioned being a brewer. Like if you're playing Legacy, you might not be playing the best deck like Delver. You might actually play a deck that is competitive, but that you brewed, right? The Legacy version of Kenrith, right? But for the most part, like it's very pure. And this is something that I'm just telling you as a person who's starting to try to understand CEDH and have more empathy for different types of players, like and thoughts. Like it's still very hard for me to wrap my head around that. It's like, here's something that is called competitive EDH, but the goal is not always to win, or maybe the local goal is to win, but then the longer term is not about winning, or it's about something else. You know what I mean?
It's a very, because it's part of like its intrinsic value of being a social format, right? Like Commander at its core is a social format.
There's that social layer.
And so like there has to be, and they talk about this a lot in casual Commander. It's like a rule zero conversation. And in competitive Magic, I play in a lot of pods where like people will do the strip mine your only land. No one plays strip mine, but they'll like an action like that. And the games in that, when that happens, you just accept it and know that, like, because we've had this conversation, this rule zero conversation, that we are going to try to win. We're going to try to win in any way that we can. And so I'm going to do this action, and it's going to suck. It's going to suck. It feels this way, but I'm not going to take it personally, because I know that this is the format we've set up for ourselves. We've set up this very intense.
There's a contract that was
exactly, this social contract when you don't have that social contract and you play just like with a bunch of random people in a competitive like tournament or something like that, people are going to get upset because you don't have that opportunity to do that. Like, even though you're in a tournament, it's like, oh, but I still want to play Magic. There's still that social fabric that exists. And so it's not pure. It's not. It's definitely not. The highest levels of CEDH might be more what you're looking for. That like, I'm gonna do this thing because it's in my best interest to stop you in this way. And I think you would enjoy higher levels of CEDH to great effect. I think you would really enjoy that. But the grind to get there would be kind of a slog.
Okay. In the sense that you have to find those games, or in the sense that it is a progression in a way, like there's levels.
You have to find the play group. Yeah. And if you have access to the play group, like you're in China?
I'm in China, yeah.
Yeah. So China has a huge CEDH scene.
Oh, absolutely. This is actually one of the reasons why I started interviewing CEDH people, is because one of my really, really good friends is like a diehard EDH and now CEDH player. So he's told me all these things over the years, and I've just been like, I got to learn more because this thing is growing. So,
so like you should have no problem finding a play group like of people who are legit, like trying to win. I know that the Chinese and Japanese metas are very different than like
they can be different.
Just different than like the metas here in the US. Like in the US, I would say in the US, in Finland, Sweden, and Canada, like Turbo is like pretty strong. It's probably like one of the strongest things. But I've seen like Karn be like a really strong deck in the Japanese metas, and as well as Morrowind. Like I was just like surprising decks, and I was like, what is happening? This is really interesting.
Pretty wild sometimes, like different metas and countries and regions.
But once you find that pod, you will have a really good time because you'll have that conversation, and then your games will be really good for it.
So I want to also go back to something you mentioned, which is be nice, right? Or don't be a dick is the flip side of that. Other than that, are there other ways that you can effectively collaborate with people? Because you had recently tweeted about like maybe in jest, but maybe serious as well. Like you want to collab with people. So it's like if you're out there trying to do that, or you're up and coming, like how does one do that other than the baseline, like be nice and don't be a dick?
Just ask. Like Twitter is free. I would just ask. Like it's if you want to collaborate. A good example, Josh, Mind Muscle Magic is his Twitter handle, and he is like one of the nicest humans I've ever met. He's just the kindest soul. And he had a video early on when we started making content, and he had like Sheldon Menery. He had like a bunch of people from the Commander Advisory Group and the RC, like all of these people come onto his channel. His channel didn't have very many people. Like I think he had like 700 followers, and on his YouTube channel, and like these huge names were coming, and all he did is ask. He just sent an email, and that's the one thing about the Commander community, is that everyone's usually willing to work with each other, and will like give you their time if you just give them like a little bit of room. Like, oh, do you have time to meet? Like right now, at the time of this recording, it's October. Do you have time to meet in January? Can I get 10 minutes of your time in January? That'd be amazing, right? Yeah. Oh, for sure. You gave me 3 months. Oh, yeah, we could do that. I give you 20 minutes, 30 minutes of my time. Right. Just ask. Like people are so willing. For sure.
What do you think is unique about the Commander or CEDH community for that? Because it's not often the case, perhaps in other Magic sub-communities. Is there like a historical reason, traditional, or it's just sort of like a pay it forward kind of deal?
Again, Commander is a social format. Like that's like it carries over even though, like outside of Magic. Like you have to talk to each other. It's not just like I'm gonna win the game, you're gonna lose the game. It's we are playing this game together, kind of exploring the space together. And so I don't know. I found that like Commander players tend to be really sociable and agreeable when it comes to like collaborating. Because at the end of the day, it's like this might lead to a game, and we're all addicts of cardboard. So
for sure, yeah, that's good to keep in mind. And yeah, I've seen that with you. Like you're very open, and that's fantastic. So, how did you get connected with the Playing with Power collective? Like, when did that come about? Because you had mentioned Ashani and some members of PWP, but like, how did that start to? Was it just organic? Like, just you did the webcam games and the communities, and it just happened, or like, what happened there?
Yeah. So I had been talking to Mike from Playing with Power. He really liked my Kenrith deck, and you know, we just had a couple conversations, and one day he was like, hey, because I had been doing a lot of like just social media stuff, and he's like, hey, do you want to talk a little bit? I was like, sure. And he was like, you know, you're thinking maybe about bringing you on to Play with Power. And I was like, you know what? That sounds like a good idea. I would like that. That'd be great. and it was just it was a really organic, just like our goals just happened to align. I really liked the work that they did. I think for a lot of CEDH players, like it was probably the first CEDH channel that I saw that like played CEDH, and I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And yeah, and then I joined them, and it's been a year this month.
How's that experience been? Just the 12 months with this collective?
Oh, Playing with Power is dope. They're cool. They're really, really nice guys. There's a lot of intention, and I really, really like that. And like they're always open to like new suggestions and trying to make the channel better, trying to make the community better. I would say the biggest thing for me is inclusion. I really like inclusion, and finding ways to do that, even if it's small, for me is a big deal. So like recently we added pronouns to our videos, and I am aware that there are more things that anyone can do. But the fact that they were like, yeah, let's make this a thing. Let's stand by it because we want to be in unity. To me, spoke volumes to the character of the people that I was putting myself around, and knowing that I just have good things to say about them. Like they're really, really, really great people.
Any particularly fond moments, like looking back at the past year?
Oh, MTG Vegas last year. Oh my gosh. It was the first time I played with any of them in person, and it was amazing. Like we got to play some really wild stuff. I played a lot of Magic with Zach that weekend, and we had this insane like late night game that was just like spectacular. And Zach is an amazing player, and it was just this wonderful interaction of like us playing Magic and then other people around us like talking through our plays, kind of like we were talking about earlier, talking through the plays while we're playing, and like, oh, like, do you see the line in your hand? I don't think you do. Try and figure it out. And then no one being mad, like, oh, he's cheating. Like, it's just like, oh no, we're just trying to get better right now. Really, really great time. I had a really, really good time last year.
Are there any particular pieces of content that you've done with PWP that I mean, I guess there's the deck techs and things like that, but any particular ones?
Content. We did a stream for Black History Month this year. That was really, really cool. I really, really like that. We raised a lot of money during that stream, and I don't know. It was great. I really, really like that. We have some content that we've released that I really liked. I did a couple podcasts with Ryan and Cal and Ashani that I've really enjoyed. And then being able to do the voice work on some of the episodes is also really cool. It was like, I don't know, it was a really like come full circle moment. Because I went from like I used to watch this to I'm voicing a video. Like I am like, welcome to Playing with Power. Like it's like, what is happening right now? That was really cool. That was a cool moment.
And you have a really good broadcaster's voice, if I may say. So I think that really adds to the gravitas of the videos.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever want to listen to ASMR, we have an ASMR YouTube channel called Smooth Brews where we talk about, not even talk about magic. We do like we read primers, like we read the Get Rock primer. And this is with a fervent alchemist. His name's Kai, and Sean Mailing the Bear from the Mystic Remoras. And Sean, by the way, has one of the most beautiful voices in the world because it's super deep and he talks like this and it's great.
You need those deep voices for that sort of genre. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. How did you find your collaboration with the professor? I think by the time we publish this, your episode will definitely be out. I think you were recently on a Shuffle Up and Play episode. So can you talk me through that whole experience?
Yeah, I actually have no idea. No, I met him. I met him at MTG Vegas last year, and then I tweeted at him, and he followed me, and I was like, "What is this world? What is happening?"
Okay, you shot your shot.
Yeah, I shot my shot, and then he reached out. He's like, "Hey, do you want to come and play? I've been meaning to reach out to you." And I was like, "Sure." I don't know what this means, but yes, I'm down. And then I was able to fly out to Portland and play with some amazing people. Oh my gosh! And I was shocked that like it was happening. I'm still like surprised that I don't know. It blows my mind that all that happened. And it was just one of those things. Yeah, just like honestly, be nice. Like be nice to people. And like I said, the Magic community like is responsive. Like if you're really trying to put yourself out there and like really trying to make some connections, like people are happy to be friends. People are happy to be friends for sure.
What was that whole filming experience like? I mean, just in terms of being in the studio and whatever the morning routine is, and that whole process.
The professor, the thing that people need to remember is that the professor filmed all his did everything by himself for 5 years. For 5 years, he like worked 7 days a week. Man is a machine. He is like a beast. And filming with the professor was really awesome because not only did he like grab a group of people that are, I think, really well suited for each other in playing, but also he had a very clear direction of where he wanted like us to go in terms of like us playing Magic and how he wanted it to unfold, because he wanted his audience to be able to understand what was happening. And then there was like some really like true intention of, I want you to experience CEDH and be able to follow along in this ride. And I thought that was great. Like, I think that the viewers will really appreciate it because it gives the viewers time to understand what's going on. But also, like, at no point should you feel lost, because he wanted to make sure that was the case. And I loved like his intentionality with that. I thought that was really, really smart and really, really, I don't know, enlightening.
I think that's something that always comes across in his work, right? No matter what kind of video he does, it's always about accessibility. Like, even when I watch Shuffle Up and Play, I can tell that it's a point of emphasis, right? Because when someone plays a card, they'll actually read the card, they'll like zoom into the card. Like, there's a lot of care taken to make sure that that's messaged well. So yeah, it's I wish more creators did that. I mean, I guess it's always hard, right? Because everyone has limited time to make sure like the details work. But he's always struck me as someone who's very like meticulous and detail oriented in that way. So.
Yeah. Awesome. He's like, oh gosh. Yeah. Prof is great. The other people too are great. Like Rebel and Cam and Jim. Like, gosh, they're just amazing humans and spectacular players. Oh my gosh. They're so good at Magic. Gosh, really, really cool.
Any particular fond memories of maybe things that you guys did offset, or like maybe when you guys were not filming?
Oh man, so many. We played we played a game the night after a rap. We played some like more casual Magic, and the games were just like wild. We were throwing out some gnarly stuff. We would take cards from our decks and give like players like, okay, you have to play this card in your next turn. You have to play it, and it wasn't even a card in there like colors, and it was just like really, really fun, goofy, like just having a great time with friends. And that's the best. That was like for me one of my best memories. That, and like the professor knows like really good food spots. He took us to this sushi place that was amazing. Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous. Food was so good. Food was so good, and there was a breakfast spot that was also really good. But that night we played just like fun casual games. That was great, for sure.
Excellent, excellent. So in terms of your content journey, like, do you have any specific goals for what you want to do? Like in the, I don't know, let's just say in the next 6 to 12 months. Like, is there anything that you're focused on or hyper focused on?
I think in the next. Not really. A lot of the things that I wanted to do, I did the things that I wanted to do, and those are really just play games. Like I really just wanted to play games and try and like connect with the community. And one of the things that I was a part of, with a guy, his name's Joe Johnson, is to create more
Black Needle, right?
Yeah, Black Needle, yeah. Is to create a stronger presence for Black Magic players, and we were able to do that and like create like a Discord, and we filmed a couple episodes with Tabletop Jocks called the Cookout series, and just like be able to provide that. That was like a big goal that I really enjoyed. If there was like a really outlandish goal, it would be to play Magic with Post Malone. That would be dope. That'd be really cool. That or Ristic Studies. That'd be really cool too. Those are probably the two that like are really outstanding to me. But those are like, like, I don't know, you can always dream, right? But everything else, like, I feel great. Like, I feel like, oh, this is amazing. Like being on here with you. Like, I don't know. It's all fun. It's all great.
No, I mean, thank you, man. I mean, the pleasure is truly mine. And how would you describe your current relationship with Magic? Is it healthy? Is it fill in the blank?
Current relationship. It's yeah, I would say it's pretty good. I would say that it definitely takes some of my time, that can be tight at times. And I am fortunate to have a very supportive wife that understands that this is really important to me. But also like gives me a little bit of reality check sometimes. Like, hey, don't.
Yeah, you need that for sure.
Yeah.
From the better half.
Yeah, no, for sure. But the ways, I don't know. I can't impart this enough. Like having good communication in your relationships to make sure that you stay balanced is really important. But also like having the ways that you take care of yourself are equally as important. And so Magic for me has been like a way that I do self-care. And so I think my relationship with it has been great because I know that it is stress relieving.
It is stress relieving. It is a hobby. It is not a job, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So even when you're doing content, it doesn't feel like a job. It's sort of like would it be like a public manifestation of your hobby, basically?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Interesting. I got to learn that from you because sometimes it does feel like a job, depending on what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah.
Or what point of your path you're on.
There's if you start realizing you're doing more of the not Magic playing Magic, then it will start feeling that way. Like if you're doing Magic related things other than playing Magic, it will start feeling like a job for sure. For sure.
All right, I got another question here that's not like, I just need to ask because I'm just curious. Like, I did some research talking to your friends, and there's no bridge here. I'm just gonna ask, like, music. Like, I hear that you are a lyricist or a beatboxer. Like, is that true?
Yeah.
All right. Can you show us a little something on the on the mic here?
Sure.
Off the dome or on the mic? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna beatbox because my brain's tired. All right.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's
a little bit of beatboxing for you. Thank you.
That's incredible, man. How did you learn that?
Beatboxing. I've been beatboxing since I was 14. And
It was just one of your hobbies that you took seriously?
Yeah, man. It's music is like, yeah, there's so many facets of it. And my friends were really good at rapping and I was not. And so I was like, I want to learn how to make the beats. And so I started doing that. I really enjoyed it. And I had a lot of influences from the shows that I watched. And it was just really, really cool.
What kind of shows?
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. He beatboxed a lot on that show. Yeah. So I was like, oh man, this is cool. Like, chicka chicka boom, chicka 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 boom. It's like, oh, this is cool.
How do you actually learn how to do that though? Is it just like you just start imitating something and
practice?
Or is there like a school you go to? I have no idea.
Right? Nah, man, I'm telling you, just practice. Like I started like the first beat is like, and that's just, and that turns into, and then that turns into, and then you learn the funny sounds like, so, and like it evolves over time, and then you start doing really wild, crazy, funny stuff, and yeah, man, it's you just practice. But let's see, I'm 35, so I've been beatboxing for 21 years. Yeah.
20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds really good. Have you ever done like any like professional beatboxing, or like are there competitions for that? I imagine there must be, right? Or maybe that's not your style.
Listen, I would love to beatbox battle people, but the people who battle, like beatbox battle, are insane. Like I might sound like
another
really,
level.
Yeah,
okay.
I might sound like really crazy. Like it's like, but I don't think you like actively search beatbox videos. People who beatbox now, they sound like machines. It's insane. Like I don't understand how they make the sounds they make.
It's just like a human reproduction of a machine. Okay.
Yeah, like honestly, like it sound like they can do double voice stuff. They like take like techniques from like monks. It's wild. It's nuts. It's super nuts. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, the Korean beatbox scenes, by the way, is bananas. It is bananas. Yeah.
There is a set of like just funny interview short videos that I watch in China, and the interviewer is just like interviewing chicks or whatever, right? But then sometimes he has this like his co-host, which is like a beatboxer, just comes in and starts like dropping the beats, and then it's so awkward and funny because like the people being interviewed have never seen beatboxing before in China. Mm-hmm. Like they like most of the time he asks them to name their favorite Chinese rapper or any rapper, and they have nothing. Like their mind is just completely blank. And then this guy comes in, and then he always introduces his friend as like, this is the beatboxing champion of China. He's like, he won the China version of that competition a couple years ago. And I gotta say, like, you sound just as good as that guy. So maybe it's kind of like, maybe it's just like, it's all degrees, right? Maybe it's like in China, that's like top dog. You're like a top dog.
Yeah.
Maybe like, kind of like, you're a basketball player. Like, obviously the skill level in China is not as good as in the US, right? Because I guess this must have come from America. So it's like the level is just way higher, right?
Yeah, man.
It's development.
Nah, it's not even like I'm telling you, like the like China has some of the world's best beatboxers. Like there's just,
oh, for real?
Yeah,
okay.
it's like, but like, dude, Southeast Asia, man, they be coming in hot. They have some amazing talent.
Why is that? Like, because I would imagine like from a historical perspective, like how did that even come into being?
The internet is a hell of a drug, man. It's like it's one of those things. There's always going to be creatives in no matter where you go. And like when I think of like the ability to like learn new things, access to information is like the number one thing, right? So beatboxing, everyone has the same instrument, and so it's just a matter of finding ways to use that instrument. Yeah,
it's very I don't know what the term is, like democratized. Like you don't have to buy a piano or a guitar or even a ball. Like you can just do it, and if you really wanted to, that's cool.
Yeah, and the people who like do it by themselves for a long, like the people who be beatboxing alone for a long time, they're just like, they come out with like the craziest sounds that are really unique, and everyone like tries to mimic that because it's so outstanding.
It's insane, man. Like you're really good, and I of course I'm a terrible judge because I'm not in this field, but like that sounds really really good. So
telling you, man, check out a couple YouTube videos, most recent beatboxing. You're gonna be blown away. Some really cool stuff.
I will. And what other talents do you have that I may not know about?
It's a good question.
Can you like skateboard upside down, or
right? That'd be cool.
Run the marathon backwards or something? I don't know.
Nah, man. I just like music, like making music, and like beatboxing plays a big role in that.
Oh, so you do make music or make beats?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. What are your biggest influences in this area?
Probably not really. I would say like dubstep and hip hop are like my two big things. I really like lo-fi music, so I tend to make that. A lot of my music turns into lo-fi at some point. But I really, I just like, I don't know, I like music that have really cool melodies. And have like almost always some sort of like eerie kind of feel to it, for sure. Yeah,
very cool. Do you have like a public catalog somewhere that like people can listen to, or?
I will at the end of the year. I will, but not yet. All right. Gotta get it refined, or whatever it is you need to do. So yeah, for sure.
All right.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, last question for you. So the name Higher, like I know it's kind of like a play on your real name, right?
Yeah.
Or your last name. But is there any additional meaning to that? Like how did you come up with that?
So my last name is Higher, Heyer, but everyone says it Hayer when you read it. It's always spelled, it's always Alex Hayer. And I hate that because it's pronounced Higher. And my username for a long time was just Heyer. And everyone would say, oh, hey, are you joining? And I'm like, no, it's Higher. Yes, I'm joining. And so I spelled it the way you say it for the sake of my sanity. And it stuck. And now going back, if I could change it from Higher, I would use Hire. I think that would have been such a better. Oh, it would have been so much more clever.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, what you have right now is awesome. Like it has like certain connotations, right? Like I want to get higher. I have no idea.
Nope. Higher, just higher, because then it, like you want to hire me. That's like, that's so sick.
Because you want that career in HR.
Yeah. I want that to be in people's minds. Like it could have been such a cool play, but I was like, I just went for the first one because I was so annoyed when I made that change, and then everyone started saying it right, and I was like, okay, cool, Higher, that's fine. There's no There's nothing that's weird about this. That's just it's just higher. That's fine. I can just take that. That's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Alex, it was so great talking to you. I know I'm keeping you up pretty late, and I really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me.
Yeah, man, no problem. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.